Hi, I'm David Pope, and this Memorial Day, 2016, I'd very much like to honor the memory of my father, who passed away last September, and this is the first Memorial Day that my family and I are experiencing without him. But I'd also like to honor the memory of 55 other men that he served with in Vietnam, and they were members of both the United States Air Force Security Police and the U.S. Special Forces. My father, he did serve in Vietnam, and he was in the Air Force, and he flew 120 missions there. In Vietnam, my dad served with the 6994th Security Squadron. He flew 120 missions, and his job was to fly in an unarmed aircraft that flew slowly and was a sitting duck for the enemy. So much so that the 6994th earned the motto, "Unarmed, Alone, and Unafraid." These men went out every night. They flew in these slow-moving aircraft, and they tracked the enemy positions in a mission that is still classified. That's one of the difficulties I've had in putting together all of this information. But their work also made them, the 6994th, the most highly decorated Air Force unit during the Vietnam War. So the interesting thing about it is that Dad won the Distinguished Flying Cross while he was serving in Vietnam. Like I said, 120 missions. But another thing he told me was that the most important mission was on January 3rd, 1968, which was 3 weeks, close to 4 weeks before the Tet Offensive. That night, by the end of the mission, their plane had been shot up and was nearly out of fuel. And Dad, acting on a hunch, had the pilot turn the plane around because he had heard something through his instruments that he didn't feel was quite right. What he found was that an entire outpost of Green Berets, 100 men, were being silently surrounded by the North Vietnamese. After he tracked them and tracked the positions of the North Vietnamese, he was able to call in air support, and they were able to notify the outpost commander. And between the air support and the Green Berets themselves, they were able to repel and eliminate the threat. The Green Beret colonel was waiting for Dad when Dad got off of his mission that night to shake his hand and make sure he knew that he was recommending him for the Distinguished Flying Cross. One night, which was the first night of the Tet Offensive, January 30th, 1968, he woke at about 3 in the morning to the sound of gunfire and the sound of rockets and explosions throughout his base. And he was ushered very quickly into a bunker by the security police and assigned an M16. He described that as the most terrifying night of his life, because what the Tet Offensive was a concentrated effort by the North Vietnamese to capture as much U.S. equipment and as many high-valued personnel as possible. It was the largest offensive by the North Vietnamese during the war. And so Dad freely said all the time that it was the most terrified he had ever been. He was stuck in the bunker throughout the night. And by the morning, the U.S. Special Forces were able to come in and help out, but during that first night, which was one of the bloodiest nights of the war, the U.S. and the South Vietnamese Army lost 55 men. They were made up mostly of U.S. Air Force Security Police. But the way I have always looked at it, those men died so that my dad could come home. They died so that I could have a father that came to every major event of my life. They gave their lives so that my dad and the other members of the flight crews that were in those bunkers were able to survive. That's why it is very important for me to honor those men along with my father on this day. So you have this wonderful kind of circle here. On January 3rd, 1968, Dad's work helped save 100 members of our special forces. On January 30th, 1968, some of those men died to help my dad live. These men, whose names were withheld from the after-action report, gave their lives for my family, myself, and all of us celebrating today, this Memorial Day. So please take the time to remember the selflessness of the men and women who dedicate themselves to this country. Remember the sacrifices that are made every day, and keep their memory in your hearts. Thank you.